Good morning, everybody. Here we are in the garage again, getting ready to do more stuff. For the first time in a long time, we've got one of the vehicles in the garage with the hood down. So Duster is really ready to go. Seems like one of my favorite words lately is dialed, and we got this one dialed. Got her tuned up, advance is set right, fuel. The mixture is set right. This thing is running as healthy as it's going to get with that 225 in it. So this one's actually going to get yanked out here once we move some other cars outside. So we can work on this guy. This is the 77 F100. It's got a 351M big block in it. This motor is pretty well healthy. But we've got to do a little bit of work to it to get her back on the road and running and driving. So I'm going to bring you in here and show you what we're working on. So this truck has sort of been in the family for a while. Bought it from a buddy of mine about 3 years ago. I had it for about a year and a half. He didn't want to sell it in the first place. He was buying a house, needed the money for down payment, sold it to me. I took on his project, got it to be daily drivable, got it back on the road, and then he wanted to get it back because he had recently gotten married, and his stepdaughter really wanted kind of a project for the two of them to work on. I can totally relate to that. So sold it back to them. They had it for a year where it just sat. Not really of anyone's fault. His daughter got super busy. She's in school. She's got multiple jobs, and they just didn't have the time to work on this thing. So they decided after a year of it sitting and starting to rust and wither away that they were going to go ahead and sell it again. So I bought it back from them, so we both now owned it twice. And that was about 3 months ago. I limped it home, parked it in this spot in the garage, and it's been sitting here ever since. Couple reasons for that, and we're going to address both of them today. Carburetor and transmission. So carburetor never ran right, even from the get when he got it. It had a new reman 2-barrel carb, the factory carb, but a rebuilt. But it never really quite ran right. It was just not a great carb. I don't know if it was jetted wrong or what. The choke also always had issues, so it never ran good cold. I tuned it and tinkered with it the whole time I had it. But now that I've got it back, we're getting rid of that. We're fixing that problem. I had another spare 2-barrel carb from another F150. I have finished rebuilding it off camera, and we've got to install it today because it's just sitting here right now. And then we're going to pull the pan for the transmission and replace it with a new pan with a bolt because the one that's on it is just, it's warped and leaking like a sieve. So we're going to knock those out. We're going to try and get this thing back on the road today. Just want to get you guys in here to see this thing in all its glory. So, stuff that's already been done to it. I put a new radiator in it, aluminum radiator. Removed the stock fans, put on dual electric fan setup, wired that in with a temp switch right here off the thermostat housing. So we've got a little bit better cooling because overheating was an issue with this when I owned it last time. So now we've resolved that. That took care of the running hot problems. It does have HEI distributor on it. One of the things I might try and get to today as well is this distributor is stuck on this intake, and I can't get it to turn. It seems like it's adjusted pretty well, but I do want to mess with the timing today, and I have to get this thing freed up in order to play with it. Once I put the new carb on, I want to be able to tune it to timing. So we're going to try and get that moving, but that's been replaced. I went to the junkyard when I had it and got this bad boy. This one I think originally probably had like the bag hanging over here for the windshield wiper fluid. So I put this on, so it's got an actual reservoir with a pump to run the wipers. That's working, and put a coolant overflow tank on it because this was just the style where it would just spill out. And I wanted to have the extra capacity, so we put the little puke tank on for the radiator. Newer plugs and wires, those were done when I had it last, so they're only about a year and a half old. I did have one of them break. It got hung into the fan, so I got one yellow one. That's fine. I put it on number 1 so you know which one to set timing with. At least that's what I tell myself. But really, under the hood, otherwise, she's pretty much stock. Internals of this motor have never been messed with. As far as I can tell, I don't know that the valve covers have actually ever even been off of it. And they're really not leaking that bad. They're a little moist around them, but we're not gonna mess with that yet. Plan is just get this thing back going because it's pretty healthy until I decide that this thing either is lacking enough in power or something goes wrong with it, and then we're gonna swap it out. Thought is, when this motor gets too tired or something finally goes on it, I've got this. I picked this up the first time I owned this truck. It's been sitting in my garage for about a year and a half or so now, almost 2 years. I've actually moved it from my old garage to this one. And this is a 351M also, but this one has been mildly built. I say mildly because it's just, it does have the, it's a kit you can buy, I think, from like Summit and some other places. It's got the Performer 4-barrel intake manifold. It's got a Holley 750 carb on it. And it comes with the aftermarket valve covers and a small cam. But even a small cam in these really wakes them up because they were just so emission tuned. So my thought is I could eventually swap this into this truck and get a little bit more power, but it'd be a simple swap because I wouldn't even have to change motor mount setup, transmission, everything. It would be just bolt up, plug and play. But that is for another day. Here's what happens when you get this many cars. You need all of this just to get these things out of the way and where you need them. I got something blocking everything. Since the old U-Haul didn't like starting or running, we're just gonna let her run for a little bit. She hadn't been in action since we did the clear coat on them. That's the problem with having so many vehicles to choose from, is you can't drive them all enough. All right, shed some light on this situation. So this carb is just sitting on here right now, but I do have, okay, the gaskets are already installed. So we just got to get our hardware, lock washers and nuts, and run this thing down. And then we got to hook up all our vac gauges, our fuel, which I need to get the threaded nipple off the other so I can plug the fuel in. This one had a filter in it. I hate using those filters because they gum up and you can't tell. So I run the inlines, which we do have a new one of those to put in it. All right, so first thing we want to do before we hook up any linkages is start running our hardware back on. So we got our nuts and washers here. Just gonna run them all down finger tight to start. Once we get them finger tight, then we can go ahead and start really cinching them down once they're all in place. So for these linkages, first one we'll do is our transmission kickdown. It goes on this bar here, and it just has like a C-clip, I guess we'll call it, like a circlip that holds it on. That seems good. Sure. Don't want that to kick in too early. Let's see if I can see it. My goodness. I want it to hit somewhere right in here for the kick down. Wow, that should do it. We'll try it there. All right, so throttle's on. All the return springs are on. Linkage is complete. Now we got to hook up electrical and vacuum for the advance and all the other accessory vacuum ports. Got the choke cinched down. It should be good. Choke dash pot here. We'll see if that's adjusted right. We may have to tinker with it. What else we got as far as vacuum lines? We got this guy in the back here. It's got to hook up. Give these a little gentle persuasion with some WD to let them slide. Because they're not wanting to. Now she should go. No problem. Now that it's so slippery, even I can't get it. There we go. We had that there. We had that there. That's already hooked up. We had the big one in the back. Fuel. Ah, right there. Way down low. It was hidden behind this block off plate thing here. But she goes here. So Ford, in their infinite wisdom, well, I'm assuming Ford, or whoever designed this reman carb, who knows, maybe it's different. Put this stupid plate right in the way, that I guess is like a heat shield, which seems unnecessary since everything's open to the engine anyway. But see, that was blocking my access to this here, which is our vacuum advance. Boom. Boom. Boomage, total boomage. We got everything hooked up. Everything should be good. Got all the vacuum connected. We got all the linkage connected. We just got to do fuel, and I got to rob that port off the other carb. I don't like to run the stock little metal inline fuel filter on the front of the carb here. So I just put these little nipples on there. Threaded to slip nipple. So we're going to rob this off this carb and stick it on our new one. Probably doesn't need it, but we're going to throw a little bit more thread sealer on there. Run this bad boy in, and I don't think there's anything else we need to steal off this one at the time. So set him off to the side. So we got ourselves on the right direction. We're going to go ahead and thread this guy in. Since this is technically the exact same carburetor. There's a little more to work around here, so this is where ratcheting would come in handy, but I don't have this size in the ratcheting. And if I did, it'd probably be broken by now anyway. Just want to run it in. You don't want to get it too tight. You don't want to strip this out, then you're really up the creek without the paddle, but you do want it tight. This won't be under tremendous pressure, but it is a pressurized fuel line. One of the more important ones to make sure is good. Another half turn, and we're going to call that good. All right, we're going to say that's in. Same thing here. You want it tight, but not too tight. You don't want to start digging into the hose, but you do want to keep it from slipping and spinning. That feels pretty good. Give it a little quarter turn more. Bam, in there. And we'll put this stupid plate back on that we had to take off, I guess. I don't know why, but I'll put it back. Put it back so it'll inevitably chafe a hole in my vacuum advance line. You know what? We don't need it. It's just a little cover. We're going to say the hell with it. How about that? There's always some extra parts when I get them done. All right, this is just vent. You don't have to do anything with that. So we should be good. We should be able to prime it up, fire it up. We're going to change that fuel filter because it's the same one that was on it when I had this thing about a year and a half ago. All right, we've got our fancy new filter. A little bigger than the last one, but it's going to go right here. So let's go ahead and crack this old one out of here. You can see this fuel filter, though, has been rebuilt because it's Ford blue. I did the water pump on this truck about 2 years ago. And when I did, because they flash rust, you've seen it immediately, I went ahead and painted it and decided to take that opportunity to paint the whole front of the heads and block. I painted my pulleys, gave it a little freshen up. I don't think I painted the valve covers. I think I just cleaned them up. But not trying to fool anybody, make it seem brand new, but it is nice to have something presentable and decent looking and clean. Old filter out. No gunk in it. It actually wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. Let's give this one a little bit of help too. This one will probably outlive the hoses, honestly, so next time we change it, it'll be going in a brand new line. Installed, fuel line's hooked up. I don't know if this battery's got any juice left, but she's ready to try and crank. Let's see what we get. Place your bets now. Will it start without cables? I'm going to be optimistic and say yes. There was no drag on it. Then the other question is, will it even start with the way the carb is base tuned, which is 1.5 cranks out on both mixture screws. It's definitely going to have to prime because there's no fuel in it at all. That's not ideal. Let's try that again. Ooh, that's closer. It's tight in this garage. Well, good news is we got it running. Sounds like it's idling okay. Take it back on the valve cover. That one's leaking pretty bad. And it's leaking fuel out of what looks to be out of the accelerator pump. So maybe I tore that gasket when I was putting it together. It kind of sucks. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I feel like taking it apart again. So there's that. Distributor cap's out of the way. It gives us way better access here. Lets us get in and crack all these screws loose. We'll see what's going on under here. Just took this apart and redid it. That must have just been stuff built up in the line, I guess. probably going to go ahead and throw another accelerator pump diaphragm in here. But if that doesn't resolve the issue, which it might not, I really am starting to hate these 2-barrel Ford carbs. I'm probably just going to yank the intake and put that 4-barrel on it. So I'm going to go through the headache. I might as well get some power out of it, you know? All right, so here's the important takeaway here. I took a 2-barrel that I had on the shelf, didn't put any new parts in it, tore it apart, cleaned everything, carb cleaned it real well, rinsed everything off, scrubbed everything off, put it all back together. I was able to take it apart without tearing any gaskets, so I put it back together with everything that was already on it. Of course, the carb was only like a year old anyway. The accelerator pump apparently dried up, cracked, somewhere I can't see it, probably right around where the that nub is in the center of it that actually makes it move back and forth. It's sitting on the shelf dry for probably 8 months. And then when I took it apart and cleaned it, I'm sure all those harsh chemicals didn't help. It looked fine visually, but I put it all back together, put all that time into it, and here's where we're at. We got a leaking accelerator pump. So I guess lesson is there, yeah, you can rebuild stuff cheap without throwing parts at it, but sometimes that ends up costing you in the long run. All that time I spent putting it together and cleaning it and doing all that, I just spent 20, 30 minutes dinking around with it, trying to fix something that wouldn't have been a problem had I just thrown the $12 or whatever diaphragm in it. So sometimes being cheap bites you, but sometimes it doesn't. So I'm the type of guy, I will throw the cheapest stuff I can at it first and then go from there. So that being said, my next step is throw an accelerator pump diaphragm in it. I'm going to go pick one up later today. And then if that fixes it, fantastic. I am at the point of no return on this carb though. So if that doesn't do it, and I still can't get this thing tuned right, and it still runs horribly rich and is not happy on this truck, at that point, we're yanking that carb, we're yanking that intake manifold, and we're going to go ahead and pull the valve covers, clean everything up, put the new intake on it from the other motor, the 4-barrel intake, and that carb, which also needs to be rebuilt. But if I'm going to spend time and money rebuilding a carburetor, I'm going to do it on a 4-barrel 750 Holley, not this piece of junk Motorcraft 2-barrel from the emissions era. So that's where we're at. We're going to get some parts. We're going to go at it later. Maybe this afternoon, maybe even tomorrow, or let's be honest, possibly later this week. It's Sunday afternoon, running out of time. But that's where we're at. At least we got some wrench time. At least we played around with it. We figured out that, hey, at least the carburetor itself is salvageable. Everything hooked up, everything's working. Doesn't seem to have any vac leaks, but again, we're just way, way, way rich. Probably because that accelerator pump's just bleeding through all the time. So, to be continued.